Today I learned that this new viral beauty filter was created using machine learning. Unlike traditional beauty filters that use an augmented 3D face mesh that is overlaid on top of your face, filters like Bold Glamour, Teenage Look uses a machine learning tech called GAN, meaning every pixel on your face is regenerated and then outputted after referencing another data set of images, which is why the filter looks so realistic. That is all. This is Zangsta, over and out.
爆米花是怎么炒出来的？来看看，这是米啊，真实的大米。来，没有火，不用火。来，先鼓掌。爆米花要来了，炒着变成花了。来品尝一下。
This is a real-life woolly mammoth tusk. I bought it from a guy up in Alaska for $7,500, and I'm going to do my best to try and restore it, despite the fact I don't know the first thing about restoring fossils. The guy that sold me this tusk told me that it should dry out for around a year before I start working on it, so that's what I'm doing here. I put it in my basement, I put a ton of hose clamps on it, and I just came back every few days and tightened them up, and I didn't really notice it at first, but those cracks started to shrink as I did this over the months, and after about 13 months, just a little over a year, you can see just how closed those cracks became. It was pretty cool to see. I got a lot of questions of people asking me how old is this tusk, and my original plan was to get it carbon dated so I'd know exactly how old it was, but when I reached out to the places that do carbon dating, they wouldn't do it for me because I'm not affiliated with a university, so I can at least tell you this much. Mammoths went extinct around 4,000 years ago, which is crazy because that is after the Great Pyramids were built. However, that was just on one tiny island off the coast of Siberia. Almost all the rest of the mammoths went extinct around 10,000 years ago or so, so my best guess is this is 10 to 20,000 years old, but it could be 40 or 50,000 years old as well. And I did have one very educated YouTube viewer that pointed out that the Earth is only 7,500 years old, so there's no way this tusk could be 20,000 years old, so take that for what it's worth. That suspicious white powder that I was mixing with epoxy into a brown paste is probably not what you think. This is what is called bone ash, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It is burnt bones, and I got down some rabbit hole online looking up how to restore these tusks, and I found somebody that said mixing bone ash with epoxy was a good way to make this faux ivory, so that's what I did. Mixed up a bunch of that bone ash. The tiny pits I just filled with a clear resin, and now I have a lot more sanding to do, which I gotta tell you, this sanding was pretty unbearable, and it also smelled just like the dental office of your nightmares, that grinding enamel smell. It was pretty horrifying. I looked up hundreds, if not thousands, of different stands that people make to present these mammoth tusks. I even went deep and looked up vintage elephant tusk ivory presentations, which is probably going to make some of you clutch your pearls, but it's still a tusk and I want to know the best way to present this. And finally I decided I needed to do something completely original, and that's why I'm drilling a hole right down the middle of this. And don't judge me too much for this spade bit on an impact driver because it actually worked. Once I got that 1.25-inch hole started, finished it off with the auger bit or that spade bit, and now I took it to my buddy Joe over at Otter's Custom Fab, and he's gonna make the stand that will make this tusk look like it's just floating there. When I first started this project, I had a bold idea that this was going to be my first welding project. I was going to teach myself to weld on what I thought was a pretty simple stand idea, and after spending the afternoon with Joe, I was so glad that I didn't attempt to do this myself. He was very, very talented. Also, he cut this really slick chamfer by hand. I can't cut that clean of a chamfer with a router bit, so in the end, I was so glad that I used Joe because there was a lot of weight up there at the tip of this tusk. It stands about 5 feet tall or 60 inches, I think. So all that leverage up top needs to be supported very well. And finally got the stand built, and now I got back to my house and can finish the sanding and polishing process. From start to finish, I sanded it from 40 grit all the way up to 2000 grit. And there is no varnish, no lacquer, anything on it. All of the shine that you see comes entirely from the polishing process. And To attach it to the stand, I'm using this silica filler marine epoxy. It is very, very durable, but I may never be able to remove it. And here I'm putting on the N3 Nano hard coat only. The top coat would add sheen to it. The hard coat will really just protect it from the oils in people's hands, because I know people are gonna get their grubby little mitts all over it. But here's how it looks in the end. It polished up so nice. You can see this side was much more clean than the other side, but it's just a natural item. I didn't want to make it fake. I didn't want to fill it in too much. Love to know what you think of this project.
投网炮、足球炮、烧虎炮、熊猫炮、三响炮、大地红、鲨鱼炮、黑寡妇、黑蜘蛛、踩雷王、战神二代、黑色战神、大气炮、
This is what happens when you put concentrated sulfuric acid into sugar. It begins an exothermic dehydration reaction and produces elemental carbon and water vapor. The water vapor gets trapped in the carbon, and thus it begins to grow into a massive, pulsating, big black snake. The result is a fragile cylinder of graphite.